My name is Julia and I live in New Jersey. So the majority of my information is going to come from the New Jersey Consumers Affairs. So when I was looking up the most common reasons for the New Jersey licensing board to take disciplinary action, the two most common were dual relationships and competency. Now, this is not surprising because they are very broad and a lot of things can fall under those regulations. And I mean, that lines right up with our text, right? And I feel like clients have an understanding that it's wrong to enter dual relationships or conflict of interest, or if they can identify when a counselor is not competent. Whereas other regulations that may be mandated by licensing boards, clients probably don't know that, so they're not going to be submitting complaints about that. And then the theme that I was seeing was the licensing board is going to take action when we as professional counselors, or a professional counselor is practicing in a way that is either harming a client, going to harm a client, or going to harm the profession as a whole, or all of those things in one. And I mean, that makes so much sense because, I mean, the first ACA Code of Ethics is that we are placing the clients before ourselves. We are, they are first priority, and we need to be doing everything to the benefit of the client. The most recent case in New Jersey was actually a counselor who had entered a dual relationship with a client who had sought out counseling services because he had recently gone through a divorce and the relationship with his children had become strained. So him and his children ended up going to this counselor, and after 10 or 12 sessions, the father had found out that figured out somehow that the counselor had a previous professional relationship with his ex-wife. And because of the previous professional relationship with his ex-wife, the counselor was biased towards her as a mother in those counseling sessions. And mind you, this is also with the children. So the board, I mean, this deliberately goes against, the ACA Code of Ethics, Section A, 5 and 6, because it talks about dual relationships and protecting, the therapeutic relationship, and also talks about how we can have these biases when we're entering those therapeutic relationships because of the dual relationship. And then also in New Jersey Consumers Affairs policies, it's subchapter 30, section 133430.4. And what it states is basically a professional counselor providing counseling services shall not provide those services in circumstances that would be expected to limit a counselor's objectivity or impair professional judgment, or increase the risk of exploitation. So New Jersey also identifies that if you have a conflict of interest or a dual relationship, that it increases the risk of a client being exploited, or it can impair your professional judgment. So in this case, I feel like it could have definitely been true. Now the outcome of this was the board ended up revoking her license for 2 years. Now, when we talk about counselor impairment, that kind of goes hand in hand. At least I see it this way, because counselor impairment is all about protecting us as professionals and the clients. Because if we are impaired, then we are not going to do our jobs well. And the ACA Code of Ethics gives us the task force, which is a list of resources and ways that we can prevent this from happening, and also just be self-aware so that we are coming to work and doing the best that we possibly can. Now, the question that I have is, we are supposed to be taking a step back if we find ourselves impaired. At least that's what the ACA Code of Ethics says. But it is also our form of income. So what can we do as counselors as a backup plan or something if we end up finding ourselves impaired. Just a thought. Thank you. Have a good one.